Welcome to a special edition of Piloting the Future in partnership with the Climate Champions. On today's show, Lee and I will break down some insights to help all you innovators plan for this very busy DTECH season and give you some tips and tools to help you get the most insights to actions at the show. Happy innovating!
Welcome to the Climate Champions. We're doing something very special today. Kim Getchen and I are joining forces on our podcast, The Climate Champions, and Piloting the Future, where I co-host with Kim, and bringing you a very special series of episodes. Kim, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, Lee. And as you know, on Piloting the Future, we usually go deep with the industry leaders and insiders that are not just thinking about where our grid is heading, but actually doing a lot of the doing. And so I think that paves the way for why we're together today. Distributech is less than a month away, and we want people to be able to easily take action post-show to be able to pilot all of these amazing ideas that they're going to be bombarded with at Distributech.
And this year, Distributech is once again in San Diego from February 2nd to 5th. I'm on the Transportation, Electrification, Education, Planning, and Advisory Committee, and we have an amazing lineup of presenters, as do the other topic areas, which Kim will be talking more about. It's going to offer a wealth of education, information, and solutions that drive the transmission and distribution industry forward. And of course, the expo is truly one of a kind.
Absolutely. And it's growing, Lee. Like last year, just being able to walk the floor in Dallas took extra time. I mean, I was very, very winded by going from one. And for whatever reason, it was like you would have a meeting with someone on one side and then you would have to go all the way to the other. And I haven't had a chance to really dissect the floor plan yet, but someone was telling me yesterday they believed it was even going to be 2 stories this year. So like, I'm sorry, ladies. Leave the heels at home, bring your comfortable walking tennis shoes, because it's also an extra day. They added a day.
Hey, and if you have time, I'll be interviewing John McDonald, the John McDonald, live at the expo from the floor of Distributech. So even though you have a lot of walking, hopefully you could make it over Wednesday at 2:30 and see that discussion.
It's going to be great. I love it when you do it live, Lee, that's great.
One last thing, just if our listeners are interested, if you have not registered yet, I do have a promo code that will get you 20% off, and that's in all caps, D26CMTINV, and that's 20% off if you haven't registered yet. So Kim, you talked about not wearing high-heeled shoes, and I think the work that you've done will actually make it easier to walk less, but get a lot more out of Distributech. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, no, thank you, Lee. So last year, for those of you who follow InnovationWorks on LinkedIn or subscribe to our newsletter, I broke down what I thought were the top sessions that innovators should attend. I got a lot of compliments on it and people shared it, and it took me a ton of time. Let me just tell you, I had to become a student of that agenda and really go through and figure out what was the most innovative sessions that I could think about that I saw, and make sure that sessions weren't competing with each other. And I just spent a ton of time. And what I learned was, even though I got a ton of compliments, that wasn't even something that people could use once they went home. And so this year I was just racking my brain. How could I make what I do around helping give you the cheat sheet for what to go to at Distributech? How could I make it more useful when you get home? And that led me to pull out our handy dandy AI tool. And I asked it, can you look at the top 10 trends that we predicted together? Handy dandy AI and Kim worked on last year to predict the top 10 grid modernization trends and map it to the show. I mean, there's between 100 and 200 sessions, Lee. It's crazy. And InnovationWorks AI gave me the magic answers. And so what I thought I could do from there was, why don't I organize Distributech around the top 10 trends, and more importantly, really the 4 themes that are going to drive, I think, everything we do in 2026, but make it super easy now for those going to Distributech to find what they're looking on based on the real challenge that they're going to need to solve when they go home. And of course, hook all this up through InnovationWorks so that not only can you find the session based on the trend or the challenge, you can also get matched to the solvers who are already solving that challenge.
And that's exactly what I want want to do, and I go to Distributech, I'm there to go to the presentations that I think are the most important to the problems that I have. And even more important for me is visiting the vendors that I think have solutions in my area. And I can't believe how well you've created that map. It's just going to save so much time. You know, I know at Distributech, as part of the advisory committee, we worked very hard to find the right topic areas and then make sure we had the right presentations for the right topic areas. And the fact that your top 10 are so closely aligned with those topic areas really show what a great job the folks at Distributech did and you did.
Yeah, I've had a chance to peek behind the curtain a few years on how the sausage gets made around the sessions, and it is truly fascinating. And maybe that's why I'm just so obsessed with what sessions actually make it and then how are they being organized. But I do know that, a lot of CEOs of utilities, they spend a lot of time and effort to send their teams. And so the one lesson I think we've all learned is how do you make it as easy as possible for the SMEs going to the show to divide and conquer? But when they come home, how do they put those new solutions into practice? And they have to collaborate with their team when they go home. And some of the team didn't get to come to Distributech. How do you make it more collaborative? And that's what InnovationWorks is all about. We've turned Distributech into a virtual venture studio. And so you can send your team there. They can get all the goodness of being at the show. And at the same time, the team back home can be participating virtually and see, what challenges are being discussed. What are the problems, the who, what, when, where. But then the how is the solver. So how are the solvers mapping to the challenges that we have and start doing that research, whether you're on the floor or your team's at home in InnovationWorks checking it all out. I think that we can do a lot now to use technology to collaborate and accelerate what we're learning to get more ROI out of the show.
You talked about your AI, the InnovationWorks AI, and you talked about challenges and you talked about solutions. How about a brief discussion of what InnovationWorks is?
Yeah, of course. When it comes down to thinking about how we innovate in the industry, and I've been helping utilities specifically with this problem now for about 5 years. One thing that I've noticed is that we were jumping straight into how do we solve a problem? And so what we do at Innovation Force and inside of our InnovationWorks platform is we encourage everyone to start with the problem. Before you jump to the solution, let's ground ourselves in the challenges and problems that we truly have. And so our AI tool went out and read over 100 grid mod filings for the challenges. What are the problems that we're speaking to in these filings and to our regulators? We have now mapped 7,000 challenges from reading those filings. So AI creates the challenges. You can see what your peers are already working on. Again, more validation, like, hey, we think we have this problem and 5 other utilities have it. And then you can quickly find those viable, commercial ready, shovel in the ground, ready to go solutions that are ready to deploy. And so the point of it all is to really reduce the amount of time that people are spending in that research and scouting mode so that you can quickly match and find a problem that you have to the solution that's already available. You can see if it's being validated within the industry. You can find which one of your peers are already working on these problems. And it's all hosted in the cloud as a SaaS platform. So we can collaborate like it's a portal. I call it a virtual venture studio, but we can all collaborate together now as an industry. And then we've even taken it one step further. If you find a really good idea that's ready to pilot, there's a workflow and it'll walk your innovators through step by step what it takes to get a pilot from ideation through to completed pilot and ready for production ready decisions.
I love the fact that for utilities, it lets them see what solutions are out there that map directly to their challenges. And that is so great. And then once they choose one, there's a transparent process for managing it. So they don't have to make up, how do I manage a new innovative project I want to do? I love for how innovators, it gives them exposure to utilities and what utilities are matched to their specific solution so they can get in touch with those utilities and say, hey, we can match toward those challenges that you're having. And then I love how for Distributech, they can make those matches. They can take those utilities and take the vendors that are showing up their show and match them and make sure that people that are interested in certain challenges, whether they be utilities or just attendees, can find the right presentations to attend and find the right vendors to talk to. It's just fantastic how many uses it has.
Yes, no, thank you. It's been really fun. I didn't know that AI would be this successful at being able to make these matches. And the thing I forgot to mention was that the AI actually comes up with a match reason. So it's not just your normal filtering tool. I mean, you could go to a website or you could Google search today and just say, show me what are the top 5, fill in your category. And Google does a great job, and AI today will do a great job probably helping you find some of those. But our AI also gives you a match reason. So we'll explain why in industry vernacular, why we think challenge A is a good match for solution B. And then we'll do that. Imagine scaling that 10x. We will go through our entire database of 12,000 challenges and solutions and do the matching, the challenge to challenge matching, which will help you find your peers at other utilities working on the same problem. And it does the challenge to solution matching so that you can go out and find the solution that's the best fit for you. And if you're a solver, reverse that. You can put your solutions into InnovationWorks and it'll show you what problems you're already solving for utilities based on its knowledge of the filings. It saves so much time and will help, I think, this entire industry think about how we can work together to collaborate. But what I love about it even more, because every year I would walk into Distributech and I would see the word innovation everywhere. And I would just keep thinking about how could we virtualize this so 365 days a year we can keep that goodness going and really optimize our experience. And so that's what I've tried to do. And it feels like we've turned Distributech into your own virtual venture studio.
I think we should get more specific about how somebody can use this information to help them have a better experience at Distributech. Can you talk about how they might prepare their trip based on the information you've gathered for them?
From that perspective, we started with the top 10 industry trends. We don't want people to feel like they're looking for a needle in the haystack here, trying to sort through 200 abstracts or, God forbid, 7,000 challenges in InnovationWorks. So instead, what we've done is we've said, what are the top 10 challenges that the industry faces in 2026? And with authority, we can say that because we have looked at 7,000 different challenges. So you can kind of trust that the 10 trends we've predicted are fairly accurate. I mean, so far, so good. Everyone I've talked to has done a lot of head nodding. And then the question is, well, how do we do something with this? Well, we've taken all of those sessions from Distributech, which is basically the key ingredients, the secret successes that people have had throughout the year in solving some of these specific challenges. So we've mapped those sessions to the top 10 trends. So now, for example, if you're going to Distributech and let's say you only care about wildfire, you can download that trend and we will show you here are the sessions that deal with that thing you care about. It'll have the name of the session. It'll have the location of where to go. And if you click a button from the report to get into InnovationWorks, we'll also do the matching. So we'll show you who else is working on that problem. We'll show you who can solve the problem. And we also provide LinkedIn information. So if you'd like to contact that speaker ahead of Distributech or after to get maybe some of their nuggets of wisdom, you can click on a little LinkedIn button and it'll take you directly to their LinkedIn page to try to make that connection.
Just curious here, how did the top challenges map to like the number of sessions? Was there a close match or was it totally different?
Depending on the challenge, some you could imagine resiliency. There were really 2 top 10 challenges that map to resiliency and reliability that we found in our survey. They had around 30 different sessions mapped because, this is bread and butter. This is what we talk about all day long is reliability and resiliency. So that was a big category. Another big category was around flexibility. So we started looking at some of the trends around flexible customer loads, building flexible customer demand, like interacting more flexibly with your customers. That flexibility topic had about 4 different trends associated with it. And it's going to produce about 50 different different sessions where people are talking about, I guess, this new normal of like, how do we predict nonlinear loads and build more flexibility into the grid? Another huge topic this year is falling under capacity, the capacity constraints, the bottlenecks, whether it's a capacity or supply chain constraints. Those constraints will also have a lot of sessions associated with them. This year at Distributech, you will see a lot of people talking about non-wires alternatives, how they're hooking up 400 or 500 megawatts to the grid. One session said I think it was down at CPS, they hooked up 400 megawatts in 100 days. We're starting to see people really share some of their data center stories. I kind of thought going into this that because you have to submit your abstract so far in advance, I was kind of curious to see if it was going to feel stale compared to my top 10. And I was pleasantly surprised that things did map pretty well. And it did feel somewhat equal parts around reliability, fixing the constraints problem, and attacking flexibility. It was like a third, a third, a third. I was pleasantly surprised with how fresh, some of these sessions seem, given that they had to submit so early in advance last year.
So if somebody hears this podcast or watches this podcast and says, hey, I want to check this out, I'm going to Distributech and I want to see what vendors I should be visiting and what presentations I should sit in on, what do I do next?
Just go to InnovationForce, www.innovationforce.io. Right on our homepage, we're going to have a link so you can download our 4-part series on how to find the sessions that you care the most about that maps to these 10 specific trends. So we've put it together in a 4-part series thinking that this is how people would want to look at it because there was some redundancy. So if I try to put it all in one report, it was like, whoa, who wants to sift through a long document? So we split it up into 4 parts to cover the top 10 trends that seemed to make sense with roles and responsibilities at a utility. So you could run with your piece and your colleague could run with the other.
What's been the reaction so far?
So far, people are, I think, really surprised. The level of detail that we're providing and the ease now that instead of having to go through so many sessions and remember not just like, what did I want to look at, but what day is it on and in what order so that you can see like, if I care about this one topic, guess what? There's the majority of those sessions are happening on Wednesday. How am I going to figure out where I need to be on Wednesday, right? So you can really figure out logistically where you need to be and when very easily now, but still have that layer of subject matter expertise that's been sprinkled on. So we're coming at it. We really understand the needs of the attendee who's coming from a utility. And when they go home at the end of the week, we'll have to put these ideas into production. They will have to come back and quickly think about what they're going to pilot, what they're going to budget to move forward. And who has the ability at Distributech while you're walking around and talking to all these people, trying to make those connections and make the most out of that face time? How can you be keeping all of those notes and everything straight? So if you download our report, what's so great about it is we've taken the homework, we've done the homework for you, check. I say download it and hold it on your phone because then you can go through it's on your phone. You don't have to connect to the internet anywhere, which we know is a problem when you walk the floor. It's on your phone. You can flip through and see what you want to look at. And then because there's hyperlinks in that document, let's say there was a topic that was interesting, you can still click on it and be taken into InnovationWorks to see the matches so that you can see what challenges matches to what solutions. I would say just go to innovationforce.io and then download the report and go from there.
Go to the website. Always a good answer. What have you personally learned by doing this mapping for yourself?
Well, I think the first thing I learned, I didn't think that these session abstracts would produce such good challenge statements. And why I was really excited about that was because in my 5 years I've spent trying to help utilities innovate, the first barrier we run into is trying to articulate the problem we have. With many of the engineers I work with, they really do have a tendency to go deep fast. And so pulling back and coming up with a problem statement in one sentence that really articulates what you're trying to solve is not so easy. So I was pleasantly surprised that we could take each individual individual session with the limited amount of information that was publicly available was enough for our AI tool because of the knowledge that the AI tool has. It was enough for that AI tool to generate a beautiful problem statement. And then from there, that was enough information to actually do some really great matching. I'll give you an example. Lee, you may remember we had Gridware on Piloting the Future.
Of course.
They were talking a lot about, hazard delays. And one of the sessions at Distributech was talking about hazard awareness delays. And as soon as I saw that word, I thought of Gridware. I was like, oh my gosh, this has got to be a Gridware presentation. But Gridware is not on that panel. It's actually a panel of 4 utilities. And so I thought, wow, that's really fascinating. I don't see Gridware at all as a vendor on this panel, but there's a lot of utilities talking about this topic. And so when we went to do the match, Gridware was the number 1 match on that challenge. And I was talking to our friends at Gridware this morning and I let them know that, and they were very excited. And then they did fill me in yes, that was one of the panels that they did help put together, but they're not on it because as a thought leader, they wanted, the utilities to do the talking for them. Same thing happened with another one of our Piloting the Future podcast guests, Buzz Solutions. Buzz Solutions will have a session at Distributech where they talk about doing some really cool asset management work with NYPA. And as soon as we plug that in InnovationWorks with that challenge, Buzz Solutions came to the top. It was really cool to see that these solvers that have been putting the hard work into putting these sessions and panels together to share their case studies, we could work backwards from the case study to develop a nice problem statement. It did map to their solution, and I think would give a lot of confidence to a utility trying to use our tool to say, okay, I went to that session. I now have a challenge statement and a vendor that I can work with my team when I go home.
It could seem to people that this tool could replace a conference like Distributech because it does all this matching, but really it doesn't because, in my opinion, because when you go to a conference, you're going to network, to meet the solution providers, to ask questions. It's not just about the match. To me, this just makes the conference better, more useful. I'm going to get better impact out of it. I'm going to visit the vendors I want. I'm going to learn the things I need to learn. I'm not going to spend time doing things that I don't need to do, that don't map to my needs.
Absolutely. It's going to make your time at the conference that much more optimized. It's going to 10x your ability to scale yourself at the conference. And I am like you, Lee. We do not go to Distributech every year to have our heads buried in a conference program. We're there to connect and network with our peers and really make the most out of that human-to-human interaction. However, not everyone, as much as they want to go, is going to make it to Distributech. And the joke in our industry is that, look at a calendar, there's a conference a day. We can't make it to every single conference in our industry like we do have to do our day jobs. We have to selectively go to these conferences that we think make the most impact. It's a double-edged sword. If you can't make it, wouldn't it be nice if you could still get some of the benefits out of what happened at that show, whether you're a utility or a vendor? And then on the other hand, if I did get the lucky ticket to get to go, how do I focus on the human side of the conference, which is making those networks and connections with my peers? That will never, ever get replaced. It's just how do you scale yourself 10x? You have to pick your shows. You have to pick the time that you have at the shows. And so, in today's day and age, everyone talks about, is virtual and AI going to replace people? That really, we got to use these tools so we can 10x ourselves.
Yeah, this tool is a multiplier. It's not a replacement. You can't multiply 0. It multiplies what's actually out there. One of the things I love about Distributech is Initiate, where you have all these startups, and yes, there's some competition, but mostly it's just a chance for me and for many others to learn about a whole bunch of new great ideas and great solutions that are out there. How can you help them?
This is fantastic, Lee. This is what's so cool. It's actually one of the reasons why we knew it was the right time to start InnovationForce. Before COVID, there was still, I think, a propensity to work with the incumbent technologies. And it was a lot harder to get your name out there as a startup and convince a utility to work with you when you're trying to get yourself out of the garage in air quotes. Now, there's no choice. We all see the speed at which technology is morphing and adopting. And if we're going to go faster, you've got to be working with those startups with those agile ideas and the creativity that they're bringing forth forward. So the fact that Distributech started doing Initiate made me so happy. In fact, Innovation Force was in Initiate. We did Initiate. We were selected to go to Initiate. I think it was back in 2022. They've only made Initiate better since then. Like they're partnering with Incubate Energy Labs, the amazing incubator program that EPRI does. They're working with other incubators and accelerators, other venture partners or corporate venture partners like National Grid Ventures and others are all now, using Distributech as a pipeline into the utility. And the utility executives I see, you're seeing more quote unquote scouts. You're seeing more folks at utilities. Like that is their day job. Their day job is to go and scout for these new technologies and find safe ways to be able to experiment and bring them in. And so I think what's going on at Initiate is fantastic. And yeah, we're going to put every single one of those companies in as a solution in InnovationWorks. We actually crawl the web with our AI tool. We look for who's at Distributech, like what booths are there and who's speaking and who's at Initiate. And then our crawler goes through the web and starts pulling in profiles of not the company, but the solution that the company offers. Anybody can go to Crunchbook or PitchBook and look at a company overview on a startup. That's not what we're interested in. We're interested in the technology building and the problems that they solve so that utilities can really understand if they're a good fit for the problem that they have.
One thing that I find very interesting is that your solution helps startups, but you also are a startup. What's it going to take for Innovation Force to break through?
It's exactly right. So like we're living, the same day-to-day grind, hustle, whatever you want to call it, that all the startups out there are facing as well. For us to be able to get through some of these barriers, I really think it's going to be the partnership that we have with large associations and conferences. The more that Innovation Force is trusted by those utilities, by those innovators, by those scouts, the more success and faster adoption that we're going to see. Our go-to-market strategy was really not just to try to partner with the utilities, but partner with some of the associations out there, such as Association for Edison Illuminating Companies and CIATI. What they are seeing in InnovationWorks is that it's a really nice way to be able to do large-scale collaboration across an industry. And so that's what makes us a little bit different. We're really great for individual solvers. We're really great for individual utilities, but we're a force multiplier for an association or a conference because they need to be able to make these matches on steroids, and they want to be able to provide a virtual place for their members to go 24/7, 365 days a year to collaborate.
So this was very different than my normal Climate Champions episode. It was also very different than our normal Piloting the Future episode, but I at least want to end it in a Piloting the Future kind of way. So let's do a quick hot seat.
You're in on the hot seat too. Don't leave me hanging by myself.
Okay. In 5 years, what's the biggest challenge for the energy industry?
To be able to outpace their competition. And what I mean by that is, we're going to start to see more competition coming in from unlikely players right now. So we're seeing this huge build out of data centers, and those data centers are creating their own generation stacks. They're buying their own energy companies, and they're not waiting around for the normal pace with which we like to move. And so I think the biggest change in the next 5 years is going to be just the speed at which we have to do things, because there's going to be some competition in the space, and we're going to have to learn how to innovate agilely and safely. This isn't time to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We are going to have to learn how to do new things faster and figure out how to mitigate that risk, which is what innovation is all about.
So I think the biggest challenge for the energy industry is going to be government and what part government decides to play. I mean, you recently were talking about what's going on in Venezuela, and that's mostly an oil play, which is energy. And I think it puts into question about how the energy industry is going to work. A lot of people think that electric vehicles have a lot of promise, but you have the administration, at least right now, saying we don't like electric vehicles. We want to go in the oil direction and not reduce. You have polar issues. You mentioned, when I say polar, provider of last resort. So you have new providers coming in that are going to provide for themselves, but what does that do to the cost of energy for those people that can't provide for themselves? who's going to provide their energy, and how are those providers going to make money if the people they're providing it to are the ones that have the least money to offer to pay for it. I just think the government is going to have a huge role in trying to figure out how to keep energy costs reasonable and to help build a roadmap that people believe is realistic for energy in this country.
Yeah, and if you're a solver right now, you're also probably looking to international markets, just like we are at InnovationWorks. And so just because things are changing in this market doesn't mean that there's an international market, like solar, wind, and renewable adoption is happening everywhere else in the world, even if it slows down here. I would say the technology that we're building, it may force some of the solvers that usually would just stay North American centric to really have to expand. Like maybe they're going to have to go to Inlet in Europe. They might want to go to the Distributech conference that happens in Asia, which is another really exciting event. We've been doing a lot of work in Southeast Asia and have had a ton of success because the GDP growth in Southeast Asia is going to be tremendous, and they're looking to innovate, and they want to innovate with renewables. Also, they want affordable, but they also have this data center capacity and constraints. So everything that we saw in our top 10, they validated for me when I was recently in Southeast Asia. So I would say keep a global perspective, even if you start to see the government here make some short-term changes.
Well, solution providers can do that, but that brings me to my next question. Okay, 5 years, biggest challenge for utilities.
For utilities, I think you were hitting it, Lee, when you talked about affordability. We're just starting to see it now, but how are you going to be able to build capacity fast enough at a low cost, which is going to then force the data issue, which is, okay, we're going to be looking for a lot more non-wires alternatives, and we're going to have to make the most out of our data. So that means data governance, data integrity, data cleansing, as we start really moving now to more of that technology that automates the grid, all of this grid modernization stuff we've been talking about forever. So utilities are going to have to become data experts to drive that affordable customer benefit. And I don't know that these data silos that we've been operating in for so long, I think we're going to be challenged. And it is ironic to me, that the hyperscalers are kind of the ones that are our quasi competitors right now, and they know what to do with data, so that they have a leg up there. They're building their own generation stacks and they know what to do with data. So I think utilities really need to consider, this whole equation as a solution stack together.
That's a great answer. Different than the one that I have in mind, which also is around affordability. But I think the utility concern, in addition to what you talked about, is how firm that need is for new energy to them. So because you have hyperscalers maybe making their own investments in energy, how can a utility know that they should be investing more and really know it? Because if they invest the money and then the load isn't there, the customers aren't there, they're stuck with some really gnarly stranded cost issues. But if they don't build it, then they don't have it, and then they have other problems. All of that goes into how much do they charge today's customers. And I think it's very tricky. It's going to be very tricky.
It's very tricky. Right. And so then, some of these old topics are new again. Like 5 years ago, we were talking about digital substations, but yet we haven't seen a lot of them get deployed. However, if we don't start thinking out of the box with non-wires alternatives and what we can do with data, we can't just always say we're going to upgrade a substation, right, or a conductor. Like, it's just not going to work anymore. To help me, correct me if I'm wrong, but I just think that now some of these things that we've talked about are going to have to happen, because it's just not like the business as usual solutions are not going to be where we can do things affordably and quick enough. It's not even affordable, it's quick enough.
So the question is, are the utilities able to change as fast as they're going to happen? From one perspective, change is hard for any organization. Technology change is hard, but people change. That's the hardest change of all. And I think many utilities have been working their way along this line now, so that they may be able to do it. They may have the skills that it takes. Others, I think, have been taking a wait and see, and they're going to have to get off the dime.
Right. It's been wait and see for a long time in this industry. And I think now, whether you like it or not, the one thing we can agree on is that it's going to start happening.
Yeah. Last question, and then we could close this episode. I want you to tell me, especially because you are Innovation Force with InnovationWorks, what is a myth about innovation that you can bust?
Oh gosh, you were just talking about the people piece, culture. Even high-tech innovative companies have had a problem with creating innovative cultures. I think John Chambers called innovation a cancer when he was at Cisco, because once we grow to a very large size as an organization and we're regulated, we're trying to avert risk. So risk mitigation takes over, and that a lot of times kills innovation. What I like to say is that innovation can be learned. It's a capability. It's an awesome skill to upskill and give to your workforce. If you can teach them the capabilities to innovate, which is how we've built InnovationWorks, if you can give them the capabilities to innovate, you will see your culture change over time to become more innovative. And if you can train your employees to do it, you're going to have more success. And this can be controversial because a lot of senior leaders I talk to will say, I don't want to get over this barrier, this people culture barrier. I'm going to outsource it to an incubator, an accelerator. I'm going to outsource innovation to a consultant. And my answer to you is, well, guess what? That new idea that's set off in your incubator, your pseudo garage, is at some point going to come back into your utility, and it's going to get the same no because you didn't address the risk mitigation piece on how to embrace that new thing.
That is really brilliant, and it makes me think about two types of innovation. At the utility, you don't want your employees to become startup people. You don't want them experimenting on the grid and taking that kind of risk of investment to make something new work. It's actually a great idea to, in essence, outsource it in some way. Either find startups that have a solution you need or fund an incubator lab so that you have access to those solutions, because that's a great strategy, I think. But at the same time, your folks have to be trained in how to evaluate innovations, how to introduce them into the organization, how to get benefit out of them. So there's still work to do. You can't just outsource the whole thing. The direct stuff you can outsource, but the indirect stuff you have to get great at.
Absolutely. And that's when people talk about innovation with a big I or a little I. Big I, let's be real, it's happening with the startups because the startups have the VC-backed dollars to go out and build this stuff at risk. But the innovation, quote unquote, little I, the intrapreneur role at a utility, which by the way is harder, I personally believe is harder, that becomes really important. And you have to have more intrapreneurs. You have to have more innovators, people who think with a growth mindset, but you also have to train your utilities financial team, the procurement team, the legal team, the cyber team, everybody that says no for a living for good reason. We have to align them with the goals of being able to safely adopt new things so that you don't have to take on the risk, but you can still bring on the new.
Which is really what Distributech is all about. It's about discovering the new and figuring out how you're going to adapt the new technology. And I, for one, am super excited that we're so close to Distributech. It's really the most fun I have in the industry all year.
Absolutely. And especially in San Diego, we like to say we'll be keeping it classy out there in San Diego. Distributech in San Diego is always a fun event for everybody.
That's my hometown, and I'll see you all there.
Yay, I'll be seeing you there, Lee.
Okay, don't forget to innovate.